This is Brother Jamal coming to you on my YouTube channel with another video, and this one is we're still talking about the importance of what Allah commands us to do. Let me put it that way. We're still talking about what Allah commands us to do when we are judging between people, and the fact that Allah tells us, Bismillah, that when we judge between people, we have to always make sure that we judge with fairness. Any kind of judgment between people, it has to be done. It's absolutely incumbent upon us to judge always with fairness. So that continues to be our theme. The main thing is judging with fairness. And so as we look at the things that are going on around us in the world, locally, nationally, internationally, we can see when it comes to social injustice, when it comes to oppression, and when it comes to institutionalized racism, there's no fairness as far as judgment. There's no fairness at all. And historically, it proves that. So this is why it's important for the movement that's still going on inside the U.S. and even in some of the countries outside the U.S. This is why the movement is extremely important, because the movement continues to go on to put pressure, continue to put pressure on the people that's in charge, who are not dealing fair. There's no fairness in their deliberation, no fairness at all. When it comes to black and brown and yellow people, there's no fairness as far as the deliberation of whatever it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and deal with a couple of things that just kind of to show you what I'm talking about. Just historical. This is historically. As I go back to this is during the time of the 1970s, when George Bush, the father, was in office, and Henry Kissinger was his like security advisory at that particular time. One of the new ideologies that they created at that time, understand, these people create these ideologies. Once they create them, then they put them into motion, and they write them into to put it as a written in stone ideology. This ideology that they created at that particular time was entirely limited to growth. Now, when they create this kind of ideology, it really kind of backs up even what we're talking about today. And let me just step back and kind of tie all this in together on what we're talking about today, what you see happening today. When you look at this virus, which is real, this is a real thing, ask yourself a simple question. Why would they reopen everything in the U.S. and the numbers in the virus is increasing? Why would they reopen everything? And the question is that you see almost every state how the numbers have went up. In some states, you know, the numbers are much higher, but mostly all the states in the U.S., the numbers have went up on this virus. And you understand that the authorities in this document I'm reading, it's called the U.S. Elite. This is a elite group of families. Let me just give those families to you when I say the U.S. Elite, because I want you to be real clear about who I'm talking about. When I say the U.S. Elite, I mean the group of these such establishment U.S. elite families, which is the Mellons, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Morgans, the Harrimans, and George Bush, those families. And don't forget the Rothschilds, because they're in there too. All of these U.S. elite families. That's what I'm talking about. So what has happened is, as a result of them opening everything back up, they already anticipate, they already know that more people, million people are going to die. So the conclusion is, they would rather let millions of people die than to close things down, because they worship, understand, they worship their God is the money. This is their God, not human beings. They don't care nothing about human beings. They only care about their God, which is the money, which is the wealth. This is all they care about. We're talking about these U.S. elite establishment families. That's what we're talking about. So, as I said, limited to growth. This is what we're talking about. The second thing I wanted to mention too is, they decided that the earth resources, this is what they decided, not Allah, this is them deciding this. They have decided that the earth's resources were running out, mainly reasons for the crisis. What they call also was the population bomb. And early 1960, the population control lobbyists globally, they put out a crusade to reduce the world's population, and especially when it comes to black and brown, yellow people. Most of the African countries, they set out, and the Muslim countries, they set out globally a crusade to reduce the population in most of the Muslim countries and most African countries as we speak. This is something that they set out to do. And the main focus, let me share something with you too. I think this is extremely important. The main focus was the motivation behind this, and this is extremely important. The motivation behind this global crusade to limited growth, to reduce the population control. The main reason behind this goes back to December the 10th, 1974. They had a National Security Study Memorandum 200, implications of worldwide population growth for the U.S. security overseas interests. The main reason they make it clear, it made it brutally clear that the primary concern driving Washington's population assault on the third world was the desire to maintain U.S. access to cheap supplies of raw material, and to prevent, this is extremely important, this last part, and to prevent any third world country from becoming a significant world power. That's it. That says it all right there. To prevent any third world country from becoming a world power. But how the U.S. would do that is to keep control of the cheap access and the raw material. So what you see in most of the African countries today, what you see in most of the Muslim countries today, U.S. have been able to go in, set up these military bases. Mostly all the Muslim countries today, they have military bases, U.S. military bases in those countries. And so what they talk about in this crusade, mind you, this is back in 1974, what they talk about in the crusade, they have actually talked about it and put it into motion and laid the foundation down to do this. And as you heard me say, the last part of the statement was to make sure that none of the Muslim countries, African countries, become a power player. You know, I want to find the word that they use. They use the word a significant world power. That's the word that they use to make sure that the Muslim world countries and the African countries, they didn't become a significant world power. That was the whole idea, to keep control. And so what you see today's time with the dictators and the rulers they have in there, they make sure that they place certain people in those prime ministers, dictators, whatever, to make sure that that doesn't happen. This is why you see all the crazy stuff going on in the Muslim world today, because the leaders they are put into power to make sure that they stay under the control of the U.S. so there's no significant power base in the Muslim world, in the African countries. This is why. This is why you see this today. Now, some time ago, some of the leaders that they had in the Muslim world, in the African countries, would have did that because, remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, remember when El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, made so many trips to Africa. This is during the 60s, the early 60s, when Malcolm was making so many trips to Africa, to the Muslim world, talking about trying to set up something internationally that would be hooked to the black community here in this country. Once those people got wind of what Brother Malcolm was trying to do, was intending, trying to do, they had him murdered. This is why they got El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz out of the way, because of his foresight into looking down the road. Just what we're talking about here. This would have put so many of the Muslim countries and African countries, it would have put them in a position, a significant power base in that part of the world, and also connected to black people here in the U.S. Once they got wind of what Brother Malcolm was doing, they had him murdered. This is what happened. And so all of the leaders that was in the Muslim world and the African countries at that time, they either had them assassinated, had them murdered, assassinated, or they got them out of office and put some dictators in there that they control, or either they knew it was going to bring the country down. So all of this is pushing towards a new world order. That's what all this is pushing towards. I mentioned to you once again the families. I want to mention to you again, it's extremely important that you remember these families. The U.S. elite establishment families. The Mellons, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Morgans, the Harrimans, and the Bushes, and the Rothschilds. These are the families who run and control the U.S. This is considered to be the U.S. elite establishment families. They are the ones that do all this stuff behind the scenes. They're the ones that put this ideology out. They're the ones that have influence even on the system and the politicians. They are the ones. See? So all this is moving us towards a new order. They are the ones who make a decision. We know Allah knows best. But they are the ones that make a decision on letting so many million people die and reopening and not trying to find any kind of cure for this vaccination. So understand that that when they set up these situations, like where they began to demand about people having the vaccination, they began to attach things onto that. All this is trying to move things towards the new world order. This is why the protests it's extremely important to continue to expose and break down the wickedness of what these people are trying to do. When we talk about wickedness, and we talk about evil, this is what we're talking about that's going on behind the scenes. The wickedness, the evil, the uprooting of this. And this is why the movement and the protest is extremely important, because it has to expose all of this. It's extremely important to have a group of people always who stands for what is right and be strongly against what is wrong. Be firmly in what is right and be strongly against and oppose what is wrong. And see, some people don't understand this thing. They don't understand it. Some people just see these police departments and the wickedness and what they're doing. They see them as not being that bad, or not being evil, or not being wicked. They don't see that. They can't see past their cloudiness and their blindness. Even though they got eyes, but they still blind. Even though they got ears, they still don't hear because the ears has been shut up. So it's kind of like a blindness that have come over the people, because the blindness, it inhibits you to be able to see the truth. It inhibits you to be stuck in falsehood. And this is what so many people today's time is stuck in. They will defend these police officers from murdering black people. They'll come up with some kind of defense, but they can't see past the wickedness and the evil and the wrongdoing that's going on. They can't see past that because of the blindness. They got eyes, but they cannot see the truth. See, all they can see is falsehood. And so it's extremely important that the protest and the movement continues to call out and be against social injustice, be against oppression, be against institutionalized racism, because that's really what we're talking about. That's the bigger scale, the bigger picture. Some people can't see the bigger picture. All they can see is just, they're nearsighted. All they can see is right what's in front of them. And some people don't want to see down the road. Some people don't want changes. They want things to stay like they are. But trust me, Allah can use whoever He wants to use, choose whoever He want to choose to bring about a change anytime He desires, anytime He gets ready. He don't have to get permission from us. He can just guide those people into standing up for what is right and be firmly against what is wrong. This is all He have to do. So once again, it's extremely important that the movement against social injustice, the movement against oppression and institutionalized racism, it go ahead. See, it's extremely important, because once again, we have these people who are trying to push the New World Order, and they have created this ideology to push it. See, a New World Order. That's what we're talking about, y'all. That's all this, all the backdrop of this is a New World Order. That's what we're talking about. Inshallah, we'll continue to bring you videos and bring you some useful talk, give you something to think about, give you something to reflect on. And we pray that somebody, inshallah, can benefit from these talks.